That's the Tesla Model Y, and that is the new Zeekr 7X. And in this comparison test, I'm going to tell you which one I think I would choose if I was looking at these mid-sized electric SUVs. I'll go through the pricing, the battery specs, the interiors, and much, much more. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Let's check them out. The two models on test in this comparison aren't directly comparable in terms of price, because I've got the Tesla Model Y standard range rear-wheel drive here, which starts at just under $59,000 before on-road costs, and the 7X that I'm driving is the mid-spec model. So it's about $64,000. It gets the bigger battery, but still with rear-wheel drive, and it has similar levels of standard spec and tech to the Model Y. Now, both versions come with heaps and heaps of standard gear. They both get big touchscreen media systems, but the Zeekr has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as built-in sat-nav, which you also get in the Model Y. But you're getting things like standard 19-inch alloy wheels on both, fake leather trim on both, a big glass roof in both as well. But in the Zeekr, it comes with a retractable shade, which might be a bigger deal than you might actually think. Now, we'll go through some of the other different battery specs and considerations that you need to keep in mind, but these two are so close on price, I would say that it's basically whichever one you prefer. There's no real winner when it comes to pricing and specs, even though I do think that I would go for the Zeekr because of the value for money equation. And I'll get to why it feels more like value for money as opposed to just value in the interior section. All right, let's keep going. Now, as I said earlier, these two are close on price, but there's a big difference between the particular models on test when it comes to the battery stuff. So, your Model Y that you see here is the 60 kilowatt hour usable battery pack found in the Model Y standard range. It's an LFP battery and it has 466 kilometers of EV driving range, but you really need to keep a few things in mind when it comes to your charging. So, it does have a decent AC charge rate, but it also has a pretty good DC charge rate. So just if this will open, there you go. It does have a nice easy to open flap type 2 combination plug there. And when it comes to the Zeekr, well, it's got a filler cap that you have to open from the inside. It doesn't open from the outside, but it does have the big advantage when it comes to the charging stuff that you need to know. 22 kilowatt AC charging for the Zeekr and up to 420 kilowatt DC charging for this 7X mid-range model. The entry-level version has up to 450 kilowatt charging capacity, but the problem is, well, where are you going to find a 450 kilowatt charger in Australia? Nowhere just yet, but that might change in the future if Zeekr decides to roll out its own supercharger network a la Tesla's rollout, which has been extremely successful. And it does mean that if you are looking to fast charge your Tesla, you might have a couple of extra options available to you compared to a 7X. But honestly, when it comes to the battery specs, this one with a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack and more than 600 kilometers of claimed EV driving range for the mid-spec model, that is super duper impressive. Don't actually need to show you under the bonnets of these vehicles because, well, they're fully electric and they don't have an engine under there. But let's talk about what is on offer in terms of the powertrain. So this standard range rear-wheel drive Model Y has 255 kilowatts and 450 Newton meters of torque. That is plenty. And the 7X that we have right here, it's the rear-wheel drive, so it gets a single motor as well, and it has 310 kilowatts, 440 Newton meters of torque. Now, I'll talk you through what that means in terms of the drive experience shortly, but in short, that one feels a bit zippier than that one. Now, does that matter? Have your say in the comments. If you want all the information you need about the interior of the Model Y, make sure you check out my detailed review. There's a link in the description because it does go into a bit more detail than I'm going to right here. I just want to show you briefly that this does have a much more minimalist interior, and an interior that asks you to be different as well. So there's no head-up display, there's no forward driver information screen there. Your speedo, when you're driving, will show up here, and well, your gear selector shows up there too, because it doesn't have a regular gear selector. So That is odd, and if you don't like it, you're not going to like this car. Pretty simply, it does have a whole heap of other stuff on this screen, but it also doesn't have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Again, some things that might work against it depending on what your priorities are. But you do have some interesting things, like it can fart, and it can do a light show, and it can do a boombox outside the car. So it does have a heap of clever things on board, and there's YouTube on the screen in the back as well if you want to watch it, so that's great. Look, I think that if you're okay with this screen and you're okay with a lack of the other controls that you might be hoping you get, you'll be fine with this car. But if you're not, you will not like this car at all. Now, I'm going to show you a shot of me in the back seat of this car to give you an idea of how much space I had. Good amount of legroom, decent amount of headroom, but there are no grab handles overhead. And keep in mind, you don't get a shade for the glass roof in this car, but let's check out the 7X interior and see what you get. It's like night and day, people. This feels more conventional, more normal, more real, in my opinion, because you do get a driver info screen in front here. You also get a head-up display, which you might be able to see up there in the distance. And you've got some controls on your steering wheel and some stalks, including a gear selector stalk, which I think can't be understated how important that is. And also you've got a wiper stalk there too with blinkers. Now on the screen here, you've got a heap of different menus and controls, of course. This is a pre-production car, so not necessarily exactly what we'll see in the production vehicles, but it does still have Apple CarPlay wirelessly available. And I think that that does make a big difference, because if you're used to Apple CarPlay and you try and buy a car that doesn't have it, you probably won't buy that car, I've got to say. The other great thing about this is that you do have a couple of hard button controls and a volume scrolling dial there. That is another great inclusion. A boot open button. You've got a favorite button over here as well, so you can configure that to be whatever you want. At the moment, it's set up to be recirc, and it is just nice to see. That one there is a glove box button, so that's cool. And another great thing about this screen, even if you're using Apple CarPlay, you can scroll down from the top and get to your shortcuts if you need to. So it's just more livable and more likable, and also more luxurious. Just have a look at some of the trim in here, people. It looks absolutely fantastic and special, and not necessarily as fako as the veneer white interior in that Model Y. This just looks more opulent. Like I said, there is a big glass roof, but it does have a pretty thick shade as well, so it should stop things from being uncomfortable on warmer days. And another great thing, you do have some grab handles up above, which makes it a little bit nicer. Plus, you've got good sun visors up here. They're not as flimsy and magnetized as the Model Y, so it's very impressive in terms of the front seat experience. The back seat, I'll show you a shot of me in there now. It is comfier, it has more space, and it's got grab handles. Those things I like. And just like the Model Y, this car does have front and rear climate zone controls, and it's also got heated front and rear seats and ventilated front seats as well. So lots of great features, and it's a very comfy experience. Okay, so I've done full detailed review on the Model Y. You can hit the link in the description to see that review, but as a refresher, let's talk about this drive experience. There's lots of things I don't really like about it. Firstly, the steering, because it does have this peculiar feeling to it. It is almost like a video game in terms of the way that it responds, because it's super duper responsive on center. So what that means is it makes it feel more agile than it actually probably is, and that might be a little bit disconcerting at times, though it does have a good level of handling capability to it. I just don't necessarily feel like I get enough actual feel through the steering wheel. Now, my second thing that I don't like is the brakes. I don't like the brake pedal feel. It's very, very stiff feeling underfoot, and it doesn't necessarily make you feel that confident in the braking performance, even though it will pull up hard, and it's got regen braking that can basically do single pedal driving as well, and that might be great for someone who wants that. Thirdly, the shifter on the screen, that's just silly in my opinion. I wish it had a conventional shifter, because that swiping up and down to go between drive and reverse, yeah, it's just a bit strange in my opinion. And furthermore, what about the other elements of the drive experience? Well, like I said, it does have the steering that maybe is a bit more joystick-like feeling, but the handling itself is actually pretty promising, and the ride comfort is decent too. It's not the best, it's not the most comfortable car you could buy for this kind of money, but it does feel like it does a decent job over lumps and bumps in the road surface. The refinement's not too bad either, but the acceleration is the king here. It's so quick feeling, and if you want to feel like you're driving an electric car that has that instant torque, well, the Model Y could be the better choice if that's you. But let's talk about the 7X in a bit more detail in terms of the drive experience. Compared to the Model Y, there are so many things that I like more in the 7X. Firstly, gear selector. It's normal, it's not on the screen. Secondly, rear wiper, an important consideration if you ask me. Model Y doesn't have it. Plenty of other electric SUVs don't get rear wipers. I don't know why, but now, what about the rest of the drive experience? Well, this feels completely different in terms of most of the driving elements. The steering is vastly different to the Model Y. It is more natural and more normal feeling to my mind. It maybe isn't as direct or as fun feeling in twistier situations. So if you do find that you want to get a bit more joy from the experience, maybe this one won't be as thrilling, but there is a high grade one with a more involving experience with more acceleration, if that's what you want. So look, I don't think that it's a deal breaker in terms of the steering maybe being a little bit slow feeling as I put it through this corner. Just feels like it could do with just a tad more quickness on center, but honestly, it's normal feeling, natural feeling. And that's the other thing about this car I keep coming back to. It just feels less like it's asking you to change, and I love that about it. Now, the powertrain, as I've mentioned, it's the mid-spec version, and it is very, 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 very quick. So don't go thinking that this rear-wheel drive is going to feel shortchanged in terms of the grunt. It's fast, there's no doubt about it. And the regen braking system, well, it has a couple of different settings that you can play with, same with the steering and same with the acceleration. So the regen for me feels quite normal and quite natural. It's not as stop and go feeling or single pedal driving feeling as the Model Y, and I'm okay with that because I think it actually feels a little bit more realistic. And same with the brake pedal feel. To me, I just like this car, the way that it feels, the way that it drives, the way that it makes me feel when I'm driving. Yeah, I like it quite a bit more than the Model Y. Okay, now this hasn't been a proper scientific experiment when it comes to the efficiency for this comparison test, but over the time I've spent at this facility where I'm driving this pre-production version of this Zeekr, I've managed to keep an eye on the efficiency numbers. Now on screen you'll see what I saw in the Zeekr 7X, and now for context you'll see what I saw in the Model Y. But I've got to say, I've been a little bit surprised by how inefficient the Model Y is in some situations, especially if it's cold, especially if you do a lot of hilly driving. Now, as I said, this is not a full-scale Australian test where I get to really put them both through the ringer, but indicatively, I think that the Zeekr does stack up pretty well, and the Tesla maybe sells itself a little bit more in terms of what the efficiency is actually like. I know which one out of these two electric SUVs I would be choosing if it was my money, and it's not the Model Y. It is definitely the 7X because it feels more luxurious, it feels more family friendly, more practical, and a bit more comfortable as well, and a bit more easygoing in terms of the controls. And I think that could be a big consideration because while the Tesla does feel very good in a lot of ways, it does also ask you to change the way that you interact with the car considerably. And if you aren't okay with that, well, the Zeekr might be the better pick. What would you do? Have your say in the comments section below, and also let me know if you want to see more of these comparison tests. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you when I see you.